My name is Noreen Coward-Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Albert Tompkins.
And we're here from the Department of Human Resources. Today, we're going to provide you with some valuable information that's going to assist you as you review the results of the engagement survey.
And we want to thank you for participating in the survey. We appreciate your input. It's very valuable to us.
A good place to start is for us to just give an overview of the survey as to why it was administered, as well, even more importantly, to understand what employee engagement is all about.
Sure. So, as a reminder, the survey was administered back in 2018 in October. And the fundamental aim of the survey was to understand the working experience of employees within the public service. It also explored employee engagement and provide opportunity to get information for continual growth. And employee engagement is a workplace approach that was designed to ensure that employees are continued to be committed to the organization's goals and values. In addition, it provided opportunity to enhance the well-being of the public service.
What is employee engagement? A little bit more in depth.
So when we are engaged, it shows three things. It shows what we say about the organization. It shows our capacity to stay connected to the organization. And lastly, it covers how we strive within the organization. So three things. One, what we say, our willing to stay, and our ability to thrive within the organization.
All this information about employee engagement and what it means. Now let's look more specifically about our results. How many public officers responded to the survey?
There are approximately 2,618 officers within the public service. Out of that number, 725 employees gave feedback, which means we had a response rate of about 28%, which also means we had about 72% that did not respond.
And I know we did the survey along with some other OTs, overseas territories. Where did we fall in terms of participation rate in relation to the others?
Well, we're about tied second with Bermuda. First was Anguilla, and then second was us and Bermuda at 28%.
So we didn't do too bad, did we?
Not too bad.
So now let's look a little bit more specific in terms of our engagement rate.
Okay. So from the 725 employees that gave their feedback, 58% indicate that they are in fact engaged within the public service, which means about 42% feel that they're not engaged. So more than half of those who participated are engaged in the public service.
Okay. So we've looked at the engagement of our public officers overall. Now let's look at the engagement of our public officers as it relates to the ministries. How did the ministries do in terms of engagement?
Okay, as a reminder, overall, we had a 58% engagement. Now, in terms of individual ministries, the ministry with the highest engagement, for example, would be the Ministry of Education and Culture, who had a 65% engagement rate, and that's pretty high.
Yes.
Also, next we had constitutionally engaged departments that had an engagement rate of 64%. Now on the lower end, we have the Ministry of Finance, who had a rate of 51%. So anywhere from 51% to 65% within each ministry.
So then we can fairly say that at least half of our public officers are engaged.
Correct. For those who participated, at least half are engaged in each ministry.
What does that mean, though, for those who participated?
Well, they are representing the entire public service, which means that we will encourage in the future for more people to participate.
So now let's look at our performance in terms of our engagement in comparison to some of the other organizations that participated. Where did we rank? Where did we fall?
Okay. There were about 103 organizations around our size in terms of employees who participated in the survey. Out of the 103, we ranked number 81, which means if there was a race, you would want to finish first in the race.
Yes.
And so instead of finishing the race first, we ended up 81st out of 103, which means we have some room for improvement.
I would think so, quite a
I think
bit.
so too.
So now there's different factors that drives motivation. So let's take a little time and look at the various factors that affects our ability to be engaged.
Okay, so some of the key factors that impacts engagement will be such factors as my work. Another factor would be my manager or how I feel about my team. It also includes factors such as inclusion to fairness and treatment. So for the British Virgin Islands, in terms of our work, we had an engagement rate of 70%, which means that we have a positive feeling that our work impacts our engagement, about 70% rate. Another high rate would be how you feel in terms of our organizational objectives and purpose, which has an engagement rate of 84%. On the lower spectrum, an item or factor such as pay or benefits, we have a 17% engagement, which means we feel that our pay and our benefits reflect only a 17% chance of helping us to be engaged, which means we don't really think our pay actually matches our ability to be engaged. So that's an area of improvement.
I think most of public service would agree with that.
I think so too.
So let's move right along. So then let's look at how we fall then in terms of those different factors that you just mentioned in comparison to the other organizations.
Okay, so again, there were about 103 other organizations our size that also took the survey. And compared to them, for instance, for our work, we ranked number 82 out of 103. And again, that's a very low rate because again, if you want to run a race, you want to be number one.
Yes.
But in terms of our work, we're number 82 out of 103. Another factor would be our leadership and management change. Out of 103, ranked number 77. So again, these are different areas, key factors that impact our engagement and shows that we have an area to improve.
Why is it important for us to understand where we rank in relation to the other organizations? It's because we want to have some point of comparison. It's when we look at ourselves and our performance in isolation, it might give one picture.
Correct.
But as we are trying to remain competitive on a global market,
Yes.
it's important for us to see how we fall in relation to the other organizations.
Yes, definitely.
Excellent, excellent. Now this is a very interesting section. What are our colleagues saying? These were questions that were open-ended questions where persons could interject whatever response they wanted, the areas that impacting them the most. Let's see what they said.
Okay, one of the questions that was asked on the survey was what would we like our organization to change to make it a great place to work? And according to the survey, the number one answer is communication. So the number one thing that public officers would like to change within the public service is the communication. The second thing they said they would like to change would be the work environment or the facilities. A third would be leadership. And I think another top one would be the teamwork. So these are particular factors that they believe that could be changed to make a great organization.
That's so interesting.
It is.
And so then the next area we're going to be looking at is what to expect as you review your results for your various departments, because the results are going to be presented in a way in which persons can access the ministerial results as well as their departmental results. So we're going to take a few minutes out just to go through some of the main slides that are in the departmental and ministerial packages so that persons can understand them better and know what to expect.
Sure. So as you mentioned, they'll be able to see the results for not only their ministry, but they can drill down to the actual individual department. And so when you drill down to your department, you're going to receive 4 different reports. The first one you'll see the actual engagement rate for that particular department. It'll also show the different factors that impact engagement. So for instance, for this department, it has a 64% engagement rate. In addition, it has the different factors that impact engagement. So this department has a 78% engagement rate when it comes to how they feel about their work. Another example is that they have a 65% engagement rate as a terms of their manager. So again, this is a sample of what you're going to see when you drill down to your department. The second report will also indicate drivers of engagement within that particular department. So for instance, this department has these particular drivers of engagement. It also talks about items such as discrimination, bullying, and harassment, and how it impacts engagement within that department. Additionally, it has a section that addresses the well-being of the individual. And if we remember correctly, the survey asked about the well-being of individuals within a particular department.
Yes.
Finally, it talked about the stress level of the individual, and it talks about the future plans of the individual within that department. So for this department, it says that 64% of those who participated in the survey are more willing to come back and stay with the organization as opposed to 8% who feel that they want to move on somewhere else. So it's very detailed in determining the engagement of that particular department. The third report will indicate the high level of positive scoring for each question, which is highlighted in green. And then also on the other side, it has the high level of negative scoring for each question, which is in pink. Now in the middle, they have the neutral questions where people are not sure if they feel positive or negative regarding each question. So you have three different sections that indicate with that department the different scores that are high and positive and low and negative. In the final report, you will see every question that was asked on the survey for that department. It will go through each theme or variable or factor that was addressed. In addition, it will have the score for each individual theme. It'll show how they scored both positively and negative for that department. So those are the four reports for each department.
So let's move on to the next most, in my opinion, the most critical phase. The results are in. It has demonstrated and shown that we have some areas to work on.
Correct, yes.
I don't think anyone can say otherwise. So now what do we do from here? We're challenged then to decide what the next step needs to be, because we have to address these issues.
We do.
So who are the key stakeholders as we move forward?
Well, as we create a culture of action, it does involve everyone, and we have decided there are 6 key groups that will help us provide a culture of change. The first one would be the core team, which would be us, the Department of Human Resources.
We're going to play a key role in terms of facilitating, in terms of making sure that this engagement action plan is implemented.
Correct. And then the next will be the leaders. We realize that leadership is going to play a key role in ensuring that the action plan is not only taken, but implemented and measured. So we need all leaders to be involved in the actions of creating a culture of change.
When we say all leaders, we're talking about senior management, everyone.
Everyone involved.
Yes. And managers, line managers, unit managers, supervisors, they also have a role to play.
They are.
As well as interest groups.
Yes, we have identified several interest groups that we'd like to be involved to help create a culture of change within the public service. So for instance, we have the Civil Service Association, we also have the Teachers Association, the Police and the Prison Association. So all these organizations plus others, we desire to be involved in the process of change.
So everyone is involved.
Correct.
And then of course we can't leave out public officers.
That's right.
They're key.
They're key. We need their input, we need their solutions, we need their ideas in order to enable to inform our action plan. So we're calling on all public officers to be involved.
So now let's look at some timelines in terms of how this is going to happen.
Well, where do we go from here? In April and May, we're going to, as we stated, create the engagement champion team, publish results, and begin to have an action plan, consultation, and feedback to create the plan.
And then we're going in June, July, we're going to be developing the action plan, the engagement action plan. We're going to review and implement the action plan. And then when you implement something, you must have an opportunity for evaluation and follow-up.
That's right. You must inspect what you expect. So in September, through December, we're going to do a follow-up to evaluation, to measure, and to find out if the plan that we implemented is the right plan. And if not, we can always adjust and move forward.
So there you have it. For additional information on the engagement survey, and if you're interested in becoming an engagement champion, please contact the Department of Human Resources at 468-4352.
Or 468-9889. Once again, thank you for participating in the survey.